Should you become a real estate agent in the year 2024? Maybe. Let's talk about it. How's it going, friends? My name is Jesse Lynch. I run 5 real estate teams around the United States. And on this channel and in general, I'm really only interested in working with real estate agents who want to do things a little bit differently, want to do things on their own terms. So if that's you, do me a favor, come hang out for a while, subscribe to this channel, and click the bell to get notified so you can see when we put these videos out. If you have any interest in working with me in sort of any way, you can go to my website, jesselynch.co, and there's a bunch of information on there about different ways that could work. But we're talking, should you become a real estate agent in the year 2024? Again, it's a hard maybe, super up in the air. I think depends on you. And I think while that is the correct question to be asking yourself, it's also not a complete question. If a friend asks me about becoming a real estate agent, or when any new agent who is interested in joining my team asks me that question, my list of follow-up questions is almost obnoxious. Becoming a real estate agent is not just getting a job, right? It's not like going to get a job as a bartender or an accountant or a retail store or really any other job that you can think of. It is the same thing as starting your own business. Or I also like to think about it like it's actually 2 jobs. The job itself, helping people buy, sell, invest in real estate, and the job of getting the job itself, this job, over and over and over again. I've said it before, the hardest part of real estate is not the job itself, it's getting people to want you to do the job for them, which is also known as prospecting or lead generation. So, should you become a real estate agent? The question is, should I start my own business as a real estate agent? And I'm not just gonna tell you, yes, you should, or no, you shouldn't, because the reality is, you can basically have any potential outcome if you become a real estate agent. You can make absolutely no money at all, $0, and in fact, lose money on schooling and licensing, right? In Minnesota, school and licensing, you're probably $2,000 out of pocket to become a real estate agent. So you could just lose $2,000, never do just a speck of real estate, but then say that you got a real estate license. Or you could make so much money that you never really thought was possible. You can change your life and totally blow your mind as it comes to your income. Or somewhere in the middle, right? You could make a decent living and do just fine. You could do better than just fine. You could do a little bit worse than just fine. So that question will not answer itself, and in my opinion, there is nobody who will be able to give you that answer. Like, yeah, do it because you can make a lot of money. Sure, yes, you could, but you could make no money, you could lose $2,000 and a bunch of time in trying to pursue it. So instead, I'm just going to ask you the questions that I think are important, and hopefully it will help you decide if you want to make this move or not. So should you become a real estate agent in 2024? First of all, are you passionate about branding? Do you like the idea of running a business? Do you identify as somebody who is entrepreneurial? A lot of what this channel is about is teaching people how to run a real estate business like a business, how to create a real estate brand. And sometimes it's just a personal brand. I think a lot of what I do, I think of it as personality marketing. And I'm a really big believer in that's one of the most effective ways to do real estate on multiple different levels. Then the next question is, can you put yourself out there, right? The reality is you will have to put yourself out there to get any clients at all. Put yourself out there in one way or another, whether that's door knocking or cold calling or mailers or whatever. All that stuff I think is boring, not that interested in it on this channel. And in general, what I'm interested in is personality marketing, is videos, is social media, content marketing, that whole thing. So that is a real put yourself out there feeling. And some people have this guttural response to the idea of putting yourself out there in that way. But the reality is, If you are not putting yourself in front of potential clients, nobody knows you exist and nobody will ever hire you to do the job. Like I said, the hard part about real estate is not the job, it's getting people to want you to do your job for them. And I think if I get to the bottom of why people don't want to put themselves out there, is because at the end of the day, they are just afraid of failing publicly. Honestly, it's most of the time it's not failing publicly, but it's they might feel like they're failing publicly. I think really what it is learning publicly, right? Learning on the clock, putting in the time to make a video, to make a post, release it, and then wait for feedback, or wait for absolutely no feedback and go, okay, that one didn't hit, that one didn't really connect with the audience. So you're going to have those awkward, growing pains, but you have to do it publicly, right? You will do it on a public stage to some degree. I'm gonna circle back to this concept toward the very end, because I have a few thoughts on this. Sometimes people don't know that they're mortified of failing in public, right? Sometimes people don't know that to press publish on a video, a professional video about, hey, this is what I'm doing now, it is absolutely paralyzing to them, right? Like there are some people who have never had to do that. Actually think about how me playing music from basically high school on actually did a lot to train my mind about failing publicly. You have to go through so much growth to play a good show, right? And to have people show up and to have people give a single fuck about what you're doing. But it trained me to go, it's not that big of a deal, right? Like you can put a song out, people don't love it, do the next, move on to the next song. And I think that sort of whatever Teflon personality where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna do this thing, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. If it doesn't work, back to the drawing board, do it again, that tenacity, but really just the, whatever. I'm doing something that's difficult, and most people understand that it's difficult to do, and most people, if they're talking shit, are really just doing that probably because they're envious and they would never do the thing that you're doing. So more on that in a second. Next thing you have to ask yourself is, do you like people? These feel very simple. These feel like the most rudimentary questions. But if you don't like talking to people, if you don't like being around people, if you are afraid of being around people for health purposes, then you're probably gonna have a really difficult time being a real estate agent. There are so many weird encounters with people, actual clients, and there's not that many weird things that have ever happened to me with actual clients, but showings where there's another agent and their client at the showing, right? Sometimes there's 6 showings happening on a really, really busy house at the same time you pull up. So you just kind of have to have this, well, all right, here we go. It's basically gonna feel like an open house, and that's fine. The idea that you're going to buffer yourself from other people in real estate is not realistic. And then I would say you have to almost have 2 personality traits as it pertains to other people. Number 1 is, are you hospitable, right? Do you like hospitality? And or are you good at sales, right? Do you have a way of convincing people to do what you want, something like that. I believe pretty firmly that real estate can basically be 2 things. 1, it can be sales. 2, it can be hospitality. I very, very much prefer taking the hospitality route and actually providing a really good service for somebody so that they want to work with you. If you think about a really great restaurant, you don't go to a great restaurant because somebody convinced you to go there. You went there because they have a very good reputation and that you believe what you're paying is worth it because they provide a certain level of hospitality and of service. On the other hand, there are plenty of things that I've done because somebody just convinced me to do it, right? And that's sales. So I think either you have to feel that you would have a knack for sales or feel that you are passionate about the concept of hospitality. Another question that I'm absolutely astonished is one that I have to include, but I really do believe it is do you like real estate? If you're thinking about becoming a real estate agent and you don't like real estate, what are you doing? There's so many other things that you could do, and you will have to do real estate, right? In order to do real estate, you're gonna have to do real estate. You're gonna have to be involved in real estate. And it seems crazy, right? It doesn't seem like a question that would be important to ask yourself, but I literally have a friend that is and / was an agent who just left the industry because he said he didn't really care about real estate. He didn't really care about showing homes. He didn't find any joy in looking at a home. And while I tend to believe you don't have to have bliss every time you look at a house, you have to find it interesting, right? And you have to want to learn more about the homes itself, about how they go together, about condition and finishes even, right? So you have to kind of know the good and the bad and the history, but also the future of like where homes are headed. I think you have to have a natural inclination, a natural interest in those things. If you don't care about homes, then go sell cars or something. Sell something else because you have to care about it. Speaking of cars, I think the next question that you should ask yourself and try to be super honest with yourself is, are you driven? Right? Is there a fire inside of you to be successful at this endeavor? It will be difficult. It will challenge you super often. So is it very important to you that you find success in this endeavor, right? Is there something in you that is almost a level of certainty, right? It's like I don't know for sure that I'm going to do this. I don't know for sure that how I'm going to do this, but something inside of me says, I know for sure that I will do everything I can to be successful at this. I will do what is necessary of me to find a successful result. Do you have that in you? That's, I think, very, very important to ask yourself. Kind of along the same line is, are you mentally tough? The reality is it can be a very tough road to getting your first client, and then you get your first client, and then your second client, and third and fourth. It can be really difficult to gain momentum in real estate. Momentum is addicting. So once you have some real momentum, if you can try really hard to not lose that momentum, it can kind of build, right? Kind of a snowball effect. But to gain that momentum is super, super difficult sometimes, and you need to be able to push through hardships. You need to be able to push through difficult, dark, hopeless feeling times in order to see success. Real estate has a very, very high failure rate. Again, I've talked about this on this channel. I think the number is like 83%, 85% of realtors do not renew their license after year one, right? So they get licensed, they do it for a year, and then they don't do it again. That itself is really high. And then 90% are not in it after 5 years. But I've said this before as well, that is very consistent with most businesses on the whole. You can look at just businesses over time. Those numbers play out in every single industry, whether it's restaurant or sales or tech, startup stuff. Pretty much every new idea, business idea, those ratios play out over and over again. And I think along the same are you driven note is basically, can you deal with a lack of consistency? Because real estate will undeniably have a lack of consistency. Even for me, and I feel very comfortable in the longevity of real estate for me and for my business. I think I've proven that to myself. Even for me, it's inconsistent, but just these slow times are like a nice, the basement level is actually very, very comfortable for me, and everything, the busy times are just like gravy, right? Everything feels like, okay, this is just actually pretty awesome. But I've worked very hard to get it to where that lowest level of income is actually a comfortable level of income. Another question, it's along the same line, but I think there's a little bit of a different thing. There's are you driven? And then Are you mentally tough? And then do you have like the grit to withstand the inconsistency? Can you work without reward? I think especially early on, people need to know, I'm going to be doing this for quite some time. I'm going to be making posts on social media or on YouTube or whatever for quite some time. And I'm going to be just wildly consistent in my output. And I'm not going to see anything back for a while. That's another thing that I think being in music taught me is like, you're gonna work a lot. You're gonna work more than most people work like at their normal job. And so you need to just hammer and continue to be consistent, and that will eventually compound. That's funny. Early on, I was kind of like, I'm not so sure it's going to compound. And people were like, well, if you help a buyer and you did a really good job for them, eventually you should be able to help them sell. But sure enough, even faster than I would have anticipated, a couple years in, people were turning around and saying, I want to sell for one reason or another. People's lives change, mostly for the people that I've helped so far, who I helped buy and then sell in a relatively short time period. Mostly their life had changed for the better. They were making more money, had a kid, and they were like, cool, we're excited. We get to, do something cooler than what we had. Most of the time it was because they had, sort of a lifestyle improvement and they wanted to improve their house. Sometimes it's not that. Sometimes it's, sadder situations or things that make you feel a little bit awkward and kind of a bummer, but nonetheless, a change occurs. And so you're needed to help them sell. But that does truly create sort of a compounding effect. And then again, if you do a really great job for one person, there's a decent chance if you try to make it happen, there's a decent chance that they can help refer somebody to you. And so then your network just grows very naturally and compounds very, very naturally. Same with social media. If you're making content that people find interesting, that will compound over time. It may just grow very, very steadily, but then your network, your business will sort of compound with that very steady growth. And so you need to have the capacity to do that work without any payoff for quite some time. And even if you crush it, there still will be a delay between getting your license, finding a client, and having a closing. Unlike most jobs, you don't just get a paycheck within 2 to 3 weeks or 1 to 3 weeks of getting hired. There's a much, much bigger delay than that. And again, I think of it like there's 2 full-time jobs. One is doing the actual job, the second is finding the other client. So can you put in that work? Can you do what is definitely more work than a traditional job because the payoff, because the opportunity is potentially, pretty good. And then last thought on that is, ask yourself very honestly, does the uncertainty make you feel extremely anxious? I think there are a lot of people who basically just kind of want to curl up into a ball when the future is super, super uncertain. And if that's you, I hate to say it, but I think real estate would be very, very difficult for you to do. Unless it's as a part-time job and you can do it as a part-time job long enough that you can see a level of consistency that sort of shows to you that the future is not that uncertain. Which actually does bring me to my next section, which is, do you have a nest egg of some sort or I guess another job? Basically, are you in a situation where you can handle not making a steady income from real estate for a certain amount of time? There is no guarantee that you'll get paid in real estate in the first 90 days, 6 months, or ever. So do you either have a bunch of money that you can live off of for a certain amount of time until you decide to either stop doing real estate or keep doing real estate because you're making money, or you have another job? I actually have a whole video on this channel about how to be successful as a part-time real estate agent, and also a video on like when can you quit your other job. A lot of overlapping concepts with this idea, which is you need money to live, but you also need money to be a real estate agent. It takes pretty real investment, and you're gonna have to spend money to make money, and then also you're gonna just need money to live. So at what point should you part ways with a previous job, or how much money do you need to have saved up, things like that. Another question that you need to be asking yourself is, do you have a scarcity mindset or an abundance mindset? I think those terms can be a little thrown around too much, a little too rah-rah sometimes, but there is truth to that. Some people really believe that if I do well, that you won't do well, right? They believe that there's just not enough business out there. There's not enough people out there who are interested in what I'm doing to work with me. And so I'm gonna have to fight tooth and claw to get anybody to work with me. And while it's true, you're gonna have to work really hard, there's a near infinite amount of business to be had. In Minnesota, in a slow year, last year, 2023, there were 60,000 real estate transactions in the Twin Cities metropolitan area, which is not that large of an area. There's not that many people who live here. It's good, but I think a 4 million human population in the whole metro area, and 60,000 transactions occurred on a slow year. The year previously, a busy year, 80,000 transactions occurred. And so that helped me frame it to have more of an abundance mindset, right? To be like, oh, there's so much meat on the bones. There's so much opportunity out there. And my limiting beliefs that 100 transactions is an unbelievable accomplishment. While it is a cool accomplishment, again, there's 60 to 80,000 transactions. So 100 is kind of barely a drop in the bucket. But I think that coincides with the fire inside, the belief, the certainty that you're going to succeed. And there's something where I don't know exactly how to quantify it, but you need to have this level of certainty. You need to know that there are transactions out there for the taking, right? There are clients out there who want to work with you. They just have to know that you exist and have to feel confident that you will do a good job for them. So those are the questions that you got to be asking yourself in the question of, should I become a real estate agent in 2024 or really whenever? This huge list of questions should be presented to you. And if you feel confident in answering all of those questions in a way that coincides with, yeah, you should, then I think go ahead. If you have that in you, the opportunity is unbelievable. And I'm just weirdly passionate about that. But some of y'all should not become real estate agents. And I think there are some characteristics that are pretty simple. And if you think this about yourself, it's probably not the right industry for you. It's probably not the right job for you. One, if you're lazy, don't become a real estate agent. If you just don't like to work, don't become a real estate agent. I will say, if you don't like your current job and don't like going to work there, that's not the same thing as being lazy and not liking to work. If you are completely averse to work and to hustle, then real estate is not good for you. If you don't like your job, well, that's a different thing. You can hate your current job and have the potential to be a really good real estate agent. If you are very, very impatient, and I mean that both with yourself and with your own progress, but also with other people, both of those things, impatience is a very, very bad trait for a real estate agent. I actually think patience is one of the single most beneficial, most self-serving characteristics that I possess. For totally selfish purposes, being patient with people pays off. I'm glad I'm patient with people. I think it's a virtue for the most part, but for selfish purposes, it pays off. I make more money because I'm patient. If you don't like to learn, you shouldn't become a real estate agent. You have to be constantly evolving, but also if your goal is to try to sell more real estate, sell more expensive real estate, sell different types of real estate, you're gonna have to learn about it. It's gonna take this self-education that can be difficult for some people. If you're a quitter, if you give up on things very easily, it's very similar to being impatient, but if you're a quitter, it's not gonna be the move. You're gonna quit, almost for sure. If you have a track record of quitting, you're gonna quit. It's too hard. If you are not driven, right? If you don't have that drive inside of you, if you don't have a level of certainty of, I will figure it out. If you don't have the ability to pull in information, and then basically create an output of work, of effort that you're going to create based on what you've learned and figure out a path. That is probably the single most important thing that you can have. And it takes learning from other people, takes learning from the internet, takes learning from books, but it also takes learning from failure, learning from missed attempts, learning from not trying certain things. And if you don't feel confident that you can go through and navigate the world that way, I think you'll have a really, really hard time in real estate. Another trait that I think will not help you, will not serve you at all in this endeavor is if you are selfish and genuinely not interested or not trying to help people. I think having your eyes on the prize of helping more people, it's altruistic and maybe it feels a little bit woo-woo, but the reality is, if you can dial yourself back and say, look, the goal here is to help people, then you can continue to do the right thing by people and your reputation will be improved. And now this is kind of the last thought. I think it's very, very important, so don't click away. I said that I would talk about this a little bit earlier, which is the concept of if you are afraid of putting yourself out there, then should you do it, right? I believe that everybody is a little bit afraid to put themselves out there. But the question is, are you afraid of putting yourself out there to the point where it will stop you from putting yourself out there at all? I have one idea for you. If that's you, which again, so many people are so caught up in the idea of, I'm gonna make a video that says, hey y'all, I'm a real estate agent. That is terrifying to some people. I couldn't care less about it at this point. As you can see, I make a lot of videos. I don't have that in me anymore, but I did. It took quite a long time for me to just get over it. There are plenty of reasons why I could tell myself to stop. There are plenty of things about how I look at times, certain days, hair days, beard days, whatever. There are so many times where I'm just like, I don't love how I look right now. Or there are so many times where I'm like, I'm not super in the mood to do this, but I really try very hard to do it because I know it's the important work. But if you really think there's a chance that you might not do any videos, right? You're like, I don't know, I might not put myself out there. I might go through all the licensing and all of that and just not put myself out there at all. I might not make a single call. I might not make a single post, right? If that's you, then I have an idea for you that I think will benefit you. So I think you should make a channel, whether it's a Instagram channel, YouTube channel, or whatever. You should make a channel and you should say, hey, I am going to be getting my license in real estate. And you should talk through the process that you're going through to get a license in real estate, right? To become a real estate agent. And you should begin posting all sorts of things, whether it's photos, whether it's videos of you talking, or whatever type of post you intend to make. Start talking about the journey before you've invested the money in the classes, things like that, before you've interviewed with anybody. Not only will it help you decide or maybe figure out if you are at all willing to do videos like this, I think it will actually help your momentum. If you have friends or acquaintances who see that you're doing this, who see that you're beginning this journey, by the time you're licensed, there's a chance that somebody will say, hey, will you help me? I had a friend say, before I was licensed, I said, I'm gonna get licensed soon, I'm in class. And she reached out and said, hey, when you're licensed, will you help me do this? I had another agent who I was trying to work with, but he was, he sucked. he didn't take me seriously. And I was like, yeah, of course I will. I would love to help. And so I had a client before I was even technically licensed. I wasn't actually helping them though, so I wasn't doing anything legal, but like I had somebody in the pipeline before I was licensed. So start making content about the process, about that you're gonna get licensed before you even go to a single class. And then by the time you're licensed, you will have built up some momentum and you will start blowing everybody out of the water. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.